Well, hey, welcome to the X podcast. Today is going to be a whole lot of fun.
Oh my God.
I got my friends with me.
It's going to be the best.
So I got my friend Morgan.
Hello.
I got Megan.
Hello.
Terrell. Soon
Terrell.
to be something else. Grub. In how many days?
44.
44
Yay.
days. I'm officiating the wedding.
No, he's not.
I'm not. That's not true.
I was like, I didn't do that either.
But I'm coming.
He has not even RSVP'd yet, so.
Is that true?
Yeah. Yep, he's a little.
That is not true. Cut this out. And then we also have my man Jesse, which today is a big day. Today, because he loves attention. I'm just going to just surround this moment with all the momentum that it deserves. But today is Jesse McCoy, one of my favorite human beings' birthdays.
Should we sing?
Sure is. Let's not.
We can sing it around.
Today, we were going to go, did you know we were going to go to Waffle House?
Yeah.
And then we ended up going to Brewdog, and someone mentioned us doing what we usually do, which is all go around the table and say something that we appreciate about Jesse. And he immediately, I almost want to say violently, vetoed that idea. And he said, absolutely not, we're not going to do that. I don't like that, don't do that. And I said, okay. So then in private later, I'm just going to tell him all the amazing things about him because he's awesome. So our faith context, if you haven't watched in a while or you don't know, we do work at a church. A few of us do. Morgan serves our kids.
That's right.
At this church, and all the kids teams leads them, and it has been a full year building, developing, creating. Ms. Megan has been a part of our church for a year and a half.
Yeah.
2 years, part of our faith
almost
community.
2 years, yeah.
And you work
I work at the middle school in Canal.
at the middle school in Canal. You used to be part of the hospital system when I first met you.
Yes. I used to work in healthcare. I was a night shifter. So I would have been asleep right now if I was still there.
You
Here I
would
am.
be.
I know. We're thankful for that. James.
And really cool story, and we'll maybe, I don't know, just bring that in some. Also, today's kind of fun because it's almost kind of like inspired Crashes the X podcast.
Yeah. We're here to take over.
Here to take over. The women are taking over the world. This is not new news.
Wasn't how I was envisioning how this inspired takeover would go.
I know.
I'm in it for it.
I would have prepared something different.
Yeah, we do have
Right,
some
for sure.
interesting things we're going to go into today. But you know what? You started it. You started with the conversation in the foyer. And I was like, hey, let's talk about it. And Jesse serves all the teams of everything next generation, kids and youth and all that good stuff. But a lot going on in the world. Don't know when this will air, but we're still navigating through Ukraine, Russia.
Yeah.
May 9th is come and gone. Big day that some people thought Russia was going to declare an official war, but really it was just a hollow commemoration of the day in which a lot of people say was kind of a weakening for Putin because he really couldn't declare any kind of major victory because there's a bit of a stalemate going on in Ukraine. Let's see, what else has happened this week? There was the whole escaped convict that was caught, that a 27-year veteran corrections officer helped escape, and they were gone nationwide.
Yeah.
Search for 10 days, ended pretty tragically with her, and then he is now in custody. In lighter news, there is an infant formula shortage crisis.
Oh man!
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Infant formula, there's a crisis, and it is there's a shortage, and it's a crisis right now. A lot going on. You mentioned Bluey. What does that mean?
It's a children's show.
Okay.
I was kind of joking around because you were talking about current events, and I feel like I don't get a whole lot of news time at my house. We're mostly watching cartoons. with
Gotcha,
the kids.
okay.
So if you want anything about Bluey and Bingo, I'm your girl.
I'm going to remember this. I might journal it tonight. We, Megan,
Journal-worthy.
what, just besides getting married, tell me something else fun going on in your world.
We're in contract on a house.
Yay!
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
So I've just been signing my name on lots of
life
online
away.
documents
Yeah.
and then sending them back to people I've never seen in person. So that's been my last 2 weeks. And then I just got a job at Liberty Union.
Come
today,
on.
high school biology.
What?
So yeah.
Because you're a scientist at the core.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I
You're
love
gonna be
science.
the most fun teacher.
I'm so excited.
Speaking of science, we talked about this. NASA is sending nudes into space.
Yeah.
So that's a
But
thing.
I don't think it's new news.
Then
Or new nudes.
it's not new nudes in the
Explain
news.
what's happening right now?
New nudes in
know
the
if
news.
everyone-
In the news.
That's
Okay.
right.
NASA. Maybe this is like a 2.0.
Yeah.
I don't know. You'll have to Google to understand what we're talking about. But let's talk about what everybody else, it seems like, is talking about.
Yeah.
Jack Sparrow
Yes.
and his mistress.
Yes.
And all the conflict. And so, Megan, you mentioned it. You walked up to me Sunday morning and said, what do you think
Yeah.
about Amber Heard, Johnny
So,
Depp?
I honestly had not even put a whole lot of time into it until I saw a reel. I think it was on Facebook or Instagram. And it was just so horribly like portraying Amber Heard. And I was like, what is going on? Because I heard a little bit about their struggles and lawsuit, but and it had like 30,000 likes and people were laughing and commenting just like terrible things. And so then I just kept looking, and then it's just a black hole.
It is. It
Yeah.
sucks you in.
Well, and it was funny because I was talking about we were going to do one on the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing, which I don't know. If you've been watching this podcast, we try to talk all things going on in life.
Yeah.
We talk theology, faith. We also talk about culture. Trying to get too bogged down in drama-ish culture. This probably is most we'll dip our toes in it, but it is something big going on in our world, and I think there are some layers to unwrap. But it was really funny. I asked everybody in the office, hey, so anybody have any thoughts on Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, and Morgan? Who me, I was very quiet. Immediately, I see a chair like a movie. Yes. And I was like, okay, she's got some thoughts
ready for
on
that
this
moment.
So, okay, I'm going to go through a couple of things timeline wise, in case you've been under a rock. Johnny Depp, who I think I look like in my best dreams.
Yes.
I don't, but it's my hope. If God can do all things, then. But he best known for Pirates of the Caribbean. His roles, I guess, probably skyrocketed his career through Edward Scissorhands. Scissorhands or Scissors Hands? Scissors.
I don't
Scissors.
know. I've never seen that
Scissor
one.
hands.
Scissor Hands. Scissor Hands.
Hands or scissors.
Because that. Okay, hey, I don't like how you said
Scissors
that. Scissor Hands, and was married at one point to Winona Ryder. Has this infamous tattoo, Winona Forever, that I guess now says Wino Forever. Was with Paradis, but in 2009 did the Rum. I think
Diaries.
The Rum Diaries with Amber Heard, a movie taking place on a tropical island or something. And shortly after that, I think they said the end of 2011, beginning 2012, they started dating.
Yep.
They both, at that year in 2012, broke off with their longtime partners, or at least for Johnny Depp, he had been with Paradis for 14 years, dating 14 years.
2 kids.
2 kids. They got engaged in 2014, married 2015.
Yeah.
By 2016, literally less than a year later, Heard files for divorce, claims domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And then in 2017 was the first libel case, I believe. There was a son, a write-up in The Sun, that called Depp a wife beater. And he fought it. Is that right?
Well, so Amber Heard wrote a co-op or a co-ed.
That's the Washington Post.
Op-ed.
But this was before that, though, right?
I knew I
It was the
getting
op-ed.
But before the
op-ed.
op-ed, there was the Sun did.
I think the Sun
That was
did that
after.
after the
That was
op-ed.
after, okay.
Yes. So Amber Heard published her op-ed, and it was really her way of just saying that after her divorce, she's become this public figure for surviving women
Yes.
of domestic abuse, and how she never name-dropped Johnny Depp at all, but said that she had been a survivor of abuse from childhood to adulthood. So never really said Johnny Depp, but anyone reading it would think Johnny Depp.
Puts 2 and 2
you know what I
together.
mean?
Yeah.
So then she really used it as a push for more awareness around women speaking out against domestic abuse. And then Johnny Depp ended up suing her for defamation.
Well, he also lost the Pirates of the Caribbean
Oh, yeah.
contract.
Yes. Warner Brothers fired
So,
him.
Yes.
And then that's part of his argument that it was obvious who she was talking about.
Right.
Yes.
Because I heard him say that, for him, not just for the money, I mean, he lost a $22.5 million contract.
Right. And we lost.
And we lost Captain Jack Sparrow. And he said that for him, like every good character deserves a goodbye. And so this was going to be the goodbye that he gave his character. And then I think famously was in court, they said, would you ever, even if they paid you $300 million and a million alpacas, would you take the role again? He said, absolutely not. So now, he filed a defamation lawsuit, and then you help me understand right now what the world is watching is a counter defamation lawsuit.
Very ugly.
So before we get into all the maybe opinions and thoughts, I'm curious. Each one of you share what's one or two things that have just from the court case, from the actual trial, like that have just shocked or stunned you or stood out that have just been fascinating to you.
Well, I would first like to preface all of this by saying it's not always this healthy to care this much about celebrity lifestyle.
Yeah, why do we care so much?
And
Why are we doing this?
It should not control your day. It shouldn't control your mood.
Yeah.
But yet here we are. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
As far as things that have happened in the courtroom, it's been somewhat comical. So I personally have not watched any of it live. I've seen clips here and there.
Yeah.
The famous face that Amber makes after her dog gets stung by a bee. She's talking about her dog, which I'm not even sure what that had to do with anything.
Yeah. There was it was part of their custody battle over their dogs.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Because they got in trouble for not declaring the dogs in Australia or something.
So they
This is brand new information.
they faked paperwork to get their dogs into Australia for their wedding, which they eloped. It was which Australia, this is a science to me, has a huge problem with invasive species because they're an island. So if they get an invasive species, it totally changes like every species on the island.
Which is why they were the most strict continent during COVID.
They're very strict. They're very strict, especially if you're bringing livestock, animals, plants, anything into the country. So they faked that paperwork to get their dogs at their ceremony. And then
so it begins.
Yes. So the dogs became part of a custody battle in court.
Yeah.
Amber wanted her protection order to extend to the dogs, and it was denied. And so they loved these dogs
Clearly.
a whole lot.
Yeah.
So the dogs
Are an important
have popped up
role.
have popped up in the case a lot.
Yes. Yeah, I think just, I don't know, the facial expressions. I feel like Johnny's response to a lot of the questions he's asked, like he's very slow to respond.
Yes.
It's very difficult.
And
to
he
watch.
seems very intelligent. And it's part of me is like, is he putting on a show right now? Is he like capturing the audience? Which, I mean, that's what he gets paid to do
Yeah.
with these like kind of witty remarks. Like, what was one about, the wine, the was it the mega pint? The mega pint of wine. And he, kind of shoots her lawyers down. He's like, a mega pint? No.
Yeah, like it seems like just as much off screen as on screen. He's got the charm and the mystique and the wit persona nailed down, and it does suck you in.
It does, and I feel like immediately want to be Team Johnny. Like, well, this guy's hilarious. Of course, I'm on his side.
Right.
But anyway, those are a couple of my highlights. How about you, Megan?
So I think that the main thing that even got me interested in this case was just the public reaction to, because like you said, we've seen very short clips. Like most of what is circulating is very short clip from hours of the court case that has been publicly broadcasted. And just it completely strips it of context, but the culture in the public has no problem providing that context in whatever way, shape, or form that they want to.
Right.
And so what has been really shocking to me is just how, as society, we've responded, whether we love Johnny Depp or we love Amber Heard, how we've been so quick to watch a 10-second reel and then place labels on people or call them like dramatic, a liar, a drug addict, anything under the sun that you can think of. And so that is what really stirred me, was just...
Are you talking about the jar of cocaine? A jar, you guys.
Yeah.
And like Amber Heard she wiped her nose with a tissue, and people were like, she for sure just did a bump of cocaine.
Or the famous shot where she's starting to.
I have never wiped my nose like that.
It is okay. It's a little
And I never
suspicious.
It is a little suspect.
But like Johnny Depp gets on the stand and openly admits to Percocets and cocaine and all the people he's done cocaine with, and like.
Well, and a lot of their allegations towards each other was the amount of drugs that each other did at certain crucial moments of their marriage. So it was, during their engagement party or whatever it was, Amber Heard is talking about how Johnny Depp and her father, were doing drugs. And then on the day of their marriage, their wedding, Johnny Depp is saying that Amber Heard is doing MDMA with a bunch of people in a house. It's all this back and forth, and it's so ugly and it's so public, and you're right. Even now, it feels almost icky talking about it on a podcast. Yeah. Other than I do think there are some things to unwrap from it sounds cliche to keep saying, but this cultural moment. Right. Besides severed fingers from vodka bottles and phones at faces, what's...
Yeah, I think a couple of things have stood out. One, just like you mentioned it, like the insane coverage that this has had. I read a headline today that was, "This is the trial by TikTok."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That is, I don't know if I should admit this because it's going to make me sound silly, but most of my information I have about this trial and clips I've seen have been on TikTok.
Which makes...
Guilty.
Real. They say and honestly, the stats show that most Gen Zers, that's where they get their news. It's TikTok. Yeah. So being somebody that does that, do you think it's healthy?
No. For a couple of reasons. I think, like you said, at the end of the day, we could classify this as a couple of different ways. That really, at the end of the day, the world has gotten sucked into a marriage dispute, and because now we're all emotionally invested in and care about. Or you can see this as this is a little microscopic window into our culture as a whole. And to say, okay, well, I watched a 10-second TikTok of Johnny Depp doing something funny on the stand and, said this about Amber or whatever. Well, I'm an expert on the situation now.
Yeah.
I have done all the research I need to do.
Yeah.
I read a headline. I skimmed an article. That's all the information I need. That's all the evidence I need.
Yeah.
I've made my decision.
Yeah.
And you can't change my mind. I am now automatically opposed to you if you don't agree. Yeah. With the microscopic amount of information.
It's like, why even have a jury? You brought up a really good point, I think over text, that it's a great question to ask. Should trials be broadcast before a jury has reached a conclusion?
Right. I think that especially something this publicized, that when it comes to an unbiased jury, I'm just not sure how that's possible when... Like, I'll talk about Johnny Depp and then get on my phone and there's an ad about it. Yeah. So being a juror, if you're sitting there for hours, I can't imagine what they've been exposed to outside of the courtroom. And it's constitutionally, as a member of the public, you can attend any trial that you would like. What I don't necessarily agree with is just the live broadcasting. I do think having record of everything that goes on in the courtroom is very important for review, but when it's something this is going to be dragged on for, I think, a long time, and to expect a juror who's also a human and part of culture, because of that, to then make an unbiased decision, I just think it's impossible.
I did a little Google search. I asked Google if jurors are allowed on social media, like when they're part of a trial. And what I found, and I don't know how accurate this is, but is that they're just asked not to. Like, there's no, like...
There's not accountability. It's just...
Yeah, there's no accountability. Like, so I found that very interesting. And I wonder if this situation would change that for future.
Yeah.
Or... Also, how did they get it to be broadcast? Like...
I don't know who
okayed it.
I don't know. I don't know how that process. But it's also then if you, in the future, if you expect jurors to not be on social media, is it constitutional to be like, okay, here's your mandatory jury duty, and also give me your phone and any access you have to the internet? You know what I mean?
It's such a weird. And this is a whole different podcast for a different time. But this goes back to, again, we're in the middle of the great experiment of social media. Right. Because think about it, in the last month, for the first time ever, we're experiencing war through TikTok, and now we're experiencing nationwide trial through TikTok.
Yeah.
And is that healthy? And again, I was listening. Somebody was asking Trevor Noah the other night about what's the future of late night TV. And his point was, look, content is always going to be desired. It's just the form and mediums are going to change. And so in a way, look, people are going to get their news somehow. But it does beg the question, the overexposure and the over-obsession and it being live when it's that sensitive, is that healthy and why?
Right. And I can't imagine testifying knowing that millions of people are watching.
Do you think though that they actually love the hype?
I think so. That's interesting too. I think that if I were Johnny Depp, I would love the hype.
It's working out pretty well for him.
It's working out very well for Johnny Depp. I think that.
Yeah, I don't. It's almost like because I think there's two ways you can see it. Part of me thinks that like they're just playing roles. You know, like I think like Johnny in particular has been so unbelievably and incomprehensibly famous since he was super young.
Yeah.
I don't know how you grow up that way and you become a normal person. You can't be a normal person. So is he just, I don't want to, this is going to sound bad, is he just an actor all the time?
Right.
Yeah.
I am playing the role of, I am the accused standing up in this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this character would be this.
But hopefully that's where the weight of evidence and burden of proof comes in. And it does look like, I mean, part of the conversation is the world seemingly has overwhelmingly supported Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Part of that is there do seem to be a lot of holes in Amber Heard's case.
Right.
Part of that is this doesn't always mean everything, but you have past loves of Johnny Depp coming and vouching for his character.
Right.
People that he was either married to or dated for a long, long time saying, this is not him.
Amber's parents, from what I understand, are backing Johnny in this situation.
It's very,
Yikes.
Yeah.
But you two, I know you're joking that I'm pitting you against each other, but you two, I feel like disagree on this a little bit.
So my disagreement is that I don't think Amber Heard is receiving a fair trial. But I do think that Johnny Depp is a victim in the trial.
Of defamation, of slander, false slander.
Yes. However, I wouldn't be settled with any verdict coming of this, knowing of like the role of social media that has played in it, if that makes sense. So my disagreement is in the trial is working out very well in Johnny's favor at the cost of trial fairness to Amber Heard, because she has been, it's a little bit her fault.
She's been the brunt of a lot of memes and malice.
Yes. Also a little bit her fault, I would say. So I've done a little bit of research, and from what I can gather, there's a group of people who are trying to like trace back as to why the op-ed, why any of this. And it kind of goes back to during their divorce, Amber Heard committed a large sum of money to some children's hospital.
Yes.
And was unable, I believe, to come up with the funds.
Yes.
And then I heard Elon Musk came to her rescue.
Well, because she received $7 million from the divorce when it was finalized in 2017, right?
And she said she was going to give it all to this children's hospital and stopped making these payments. So there's a group of people who think that perhaps she had this plan, wrote this op-ed to then sue Johnny Depp, or at least to make put herself in the spotlight as this victim, and to receive some sort of outpouring of love, maybe through money, I don't know, maybe write a book.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, it was also
Okay, and then you brought up Elon Musk. How is Elon Musk and everything?
Because
And James Franco?
he is real life Iron Man.
He is real life. Elon Musk, you are in Mars. You are in Twitter. You are about to one-on-one with Putin. What? Now you are in the middle of the biggest trial going on.
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but did she not have his baby? They froze some embryos, right?
I don't know. With Elon?
Yeah.
Lydia, can you fact check this? Lydia, we've got to get you a mic in the booth.
He was listed as one of Johnny's number one public enemies because of their past.
Okay, so from what I understand is that after the divorce,
I object hearsay. Sorry.
all of this is hearsay.
It really
single
is.
bit of
It is.
everything is hearsay. After their divorce, Amber dated Elon, and apparently they froze embryos, and while they were together, never did anything with them. And I guess Amber had a midlife crisis and decided she wanted to become a mom. And I think they went to court over these embryos, and she won and got one.
So what I'm hearing is your team Johnny, your team Heard is what I'm hearing. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No. But
You said that Heard wasn't Heard.
I know, I didn't
mean,
say that.
I couldn't.
But I also think that with her op-ed, it was also at the height of the Me Too movement.
Yes.
And so, was she capitalizing on that?
Right.
Probably.
Yep.
But as culture, I feel like we have totally gone away with that.
Do you though?
I just don't think anyone is giving any like validity to anything. Like it's almost like she gets up on the stand and people just close their ears.
See, to me, I feel like she's the anomaly in the middle of this movement. Because I look like, I mean, we are still in I mean, I don't even want to go into everything, you know, Hillsong, and then we got, what was it, the Republican Senator Cawthorn that was like a rising star. I mean, but the evidence coming out against him is pretty damning. But it is almost impossible to talk about this without taking a moment to frame everything within the middle of Me Too, because that's another thing that you mentioned in the text, that this almost seems like a complete reversal.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I mean, I almost want to hear what y'all think first, because when I look at when Me Too movement started, and you guys can challenge me, especially you two ladies, just feel free to tell me what you think. But for me, I was, especially the longer it went, the more I was conflicted, because there's that initial part of me that's celebrating, because for so long, I mean, women are still in. I mean, there's still a movement towards making sure there's equality. There's still a movement in making sure that women are empowered in every way. We've come so far, but we still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
And so, thank God for every step on the march towards women's value and women's voices being elevated and empowered, and how tragic it's been for so long that misogyny was tolerated, or abuse was swept under the rug, or was even part of what was considered a normal thing that women had to deal with to climb the ladder to get through. And like, so thank God that there's a movement where women can come forward, especially when atrocious things have been done to them. Not just verbal abuse or coercion, but at times being violated, and their voices being dismissed. So thank God for every step towards women actually feeling more and more courage to step forward and speak out when there's been a wrong done.
Yes.
At the same time, like almost any movement, so yes and amen to that. At the same time, in almost any movement, sometimes a reaction against something egregious can filter into an overreaction, in which, in our broken humanity, things can be taken advantage of and things can get messy.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know if this is okay for me to say. I as a male who is a leader and who has influence, I mean, I can look. I am not perfect, but I can say I have never abused a woman verbally, physically. I've never made unwanted advances. But even knowing that I've not done any of those things, like, I'm not gonna lie, there's been moments where I'm like, man, if someone got mad at me in the cultural moment, Me Too, crescendoing with cancel culture. I mean, even if evidence were to come back to say, no, that's not true, you can almost destroy someone with a single accusation. It used to be you had to have proof. But it's almost like in a reaction against an age in which nobody would believe women, even if there was proof. It feels to me, and again, that's why I'm glad you two are here to put me in my place if I'm out of step. But it seems in an overreaction, we've almost gone to this place where you actually don't even need proof. You just need to throw out a slander, and somebody's career, whatever, can be done. Am I wrong?
No, I feel
No,
like
I
you're
think
right.
you hit it
It's
spot
scary.
on.
It's scary.
Yeah.
That, your life can hinge on the words of someone else who may not even know you.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
What do you think?
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think I would echo everything that you said, for way too long. Which why it feels a little bit weird for us guys to be like, well, a woman could just say anything and we don't even get to speak. Well, women had that for years.
Yeah.
So it feels a little weird to be like, well, hold on a second.
Right, yeah.
But I think, everything, every time culture progresses, some negative stuff come along with it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there have been people that, either have a warped view of reality that'll say, oh, well, they were just abusive to me, when in reality they weren't. That it's just immediately.
So there's some trigger words right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think, I don't know, this is what I think has partially happened. So like for years, and even now, like let's say boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, they break up. What does every guy say if they got broken up with? Oh, bro, she's crazy. Bro,
Yeah.
she's crazy.
Yeah.
True.
Okay?
Which is that's not cool.
It's not cool because it usually it's not accurate.
Right.
Now sometimes it can, all of us are capable of being a little bit of strange rangers from time to time, right?
That's a new one. Strange Rangers.
But now I think it's women can just say, oh, he was just abusive. Like, especially when I've seen this multiple times when a girl is either dumped, rejected, friend zoned, whatever, the narrative almost immediately becomes, well, they were just abusive. They were emotionally manipulated.
That's so unhealthy.
Narcissist, gaslighter.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
All the trigger words.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think we as a culture just want instant answers to everything.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, oh, they were
Yeah.
abusive. Dang, I never would have thought that about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, what do you guys want to have for lunch
Yeah.
today?
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
there's no nuance of thinking. There's no, well, hold on. Why do you say that?
Yeah.
And if you would bring up, well, oh, bro, why is she crazy? Oh, man. Oh, women, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's stupid too. Like,
Yeah.
And you just brought up another thing to hammer on the point because you're talking about psychological terms and mental health. And again, isn't it interesting that every way of progress brings with it a weapon it can be used against?
Yeah.
we all know the right words to say now.
Right. So the way of progress is let's value women's voices, but that same thing can be turned as a weapon.
Yeah.
We now, thank God, have a vocabulary for mental health to actually help people psychologically get better in their soul.
Right.
But now we can just trivialize and minimalize and use those words as weapons against somebody.
Yeah.
And then you're right. We hear words spoken about another human being and then just accept them at face value.
Yeah.
Or worse, use our mouths irresponsibly to repeat those words.
Exactly.
Hey, did you hear
Yeah.
they're abusive? Did you hear they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we destroy people with our words.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you bring this back to Johnny and Amber, we've got two people that essentially, which by the way, I said this is a marriage dispute earlier. I didn't mean to minimize abuse or whatever. That's serious. I didn't mean
Yeah.
to minimize
Right.
it.
Yeah.
But we essentially have two people that probably both have fault
Mm-hmm.
in this
For
whole thing.
sure.
For sure.
For
I mean, just
sure.
in what we've heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's drugs. There's just a crazy crap
Dog
going
Possible
on.
smuggling.
affairs.
Dog smuggling.
Texts have come out of things he's
Defecating
said.
beds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
mean, the texts have come out of things he's said that
Yeah.
are not
No.
defensible.
Right.
No.
Correct.
And then videos have come out of things that she did to him that are not
Yeah.
defensible.
Right.
They
Right.
both did wrong. And so I think coming back to where this kind of rabbit trail started was Amber maybe trying to take advantage of that cultural movement when it was #MeToo was everywhere? I'd say 100% she was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, now you've got Johnny Depp who's not going to take that sitting down to
Right.
say, oh, hold on.
Hold on a minute.
There's a whole other side of this story. So I think the reality is both of them have fault. And for any of us to sit here and say, well, I'm Team Johnny because she's crazy, or I'm Team Amber because I believe
Yeah.
all women, is irresponsible on both parts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good.
And then I think it just becomes how do you even navigate knowing all of that? How do you navigate being settled with whatever verdict comes of this? You know what I mean?
Does there have to be a verdict? Like, will there be a decision? This will be over.
I don't even know.
Can the jury be hung on such a case?
So, but I think you almost have to go back. It's like, but the verdict would not be, and
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong, the verdict is not this person was right.
Right.
Correct.
I think we're talking about defamation.
Yeah.
So like he originally sued because, oh, well, you went on the, what was it, Washington Post and said all this
Yes.
crap. Okay. Well, you can't do that because there's a whole bunch of stuff you left out of that story that you did.
Right.
So let's make sure all that stuff is known. Okay. So there's that. It's just back and forth.
Yeah, and
I
you-
said this earlier. This is, again, not to minimize abuse and all. That's very serious. But if you look at the kind of what we're seeing is middle school emotional bickering
Yeah.
from people who have millions of dollars to blow.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's not. It's not to minimize abuse, and it's also not to minimize the pain of if you really are the victim of slander.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost of his career, the cost of his reputation, but at the same time, you just cannot walk away with a live broad streaming of two people defaming and slandering each other and feel like this is healthy.
Right.
Nor can it be healthy to sit there and watch it all day. I'm sorry.
No.
Like, I know we're talking about it. Maybe
Right.
maybe we're adding to it. I don't know. But for me, it's like, I mean, the old preacher was right. You can't throw mud at each other and not get muddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, especially like really, just gonna pick on conservative Christians for a minute, have their pet sins, whether it has to do with sexuality, whether it has to do with drunkenness. But one of the things that God seems to, if you're a follower of Jesus, get the angriest about is actually the way you speak about people.
Yeah.
Slander. And slander doesn't have to be false to be slander. Gossip doesn't have to be false to be gossip.
Right.
When you speak ill about another person, when you spread negative things about another human being, God takes that seriously, whether it's in a corner through whispering or whether it's on a Facebook marketplace through public.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, God takes those things seriously. And I think what you said is true, because I'll be honest, I got friends that they all I've seen on their, and it's not in a judgmental way, but all I've seen on their stories is what's consumed them. And kind of going back to another question is, why are we so consumed? I had this weird thought, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, and if anybody's been posting about this crazily and you hear this and you're offended, I'm so sorry. But let me start by picking on, because most of the people that I have seen posting, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, have been female. There's people probably, I mean, I'm sure there's both,
Yeah.
but it kind of reminded me of, I've always thought when I've seen guys go, and I know I'm not a big sports fan, but I don't hate sports. I went to my first Clippers game of the spring a couple weeks ago. I'm a very win in Rome when it comes to sports. I enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my thing. No offense to people that are obsessed with it. But when you see some people go so overboard, like I got people I know that, I mean, are so invested emotionally that they will enrage, cuss out refs and umps, and their whole identity, and it just rides on their team. And all I can think of is, in fact, we may have done a podcast about this a couple years ago. You need a bigger story in life.
Yeah.
You need a bigger fight,
Yeah.
because God has put in the DNA of everybody to be a part of a story and to be a part of something purposeful and meaningful, and to pick a good fight, to get in some good trouble,
Yeah.
to pick a fight and that hopefully is big against injustice or poverty or people not hearing the gospel. And all I can think when I see somebody just going down a rabbit trail of something trivial and sucking all their time and emotional energy away is, you need to find a new purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in a judgmental way, but and so I think that towards some of maybe guy acquaintances I know that are just pigeonholed into this obsession in what appears to be an emotionally unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And then I've had this thought a couple times lately with people that are just, their world is wrapped around this court case that really they should not even have a window to look into.
Right.
And I'm just like, what? I want to. It sounds. I don't mean it judgmental, but in love, I want to just put a fire under them to say, let's get you a story worth living into.
Yeah.
Let's get you a new horizon to run after. Let's put some purpose in you, because this thing should be not even on your periphery.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the thing that comes to my mind when I think about it. And I don't know. Anything else that you guys? I mean, I wrote down a couple things that as I try to peel away the onion of all this craziness that have come to my mind. But I'm curious what you guys think.
I think culture, you're asking why. Like, why are we so interested in this? I think we idolize these celebrities. And we put them up on this pedestal and we think perfection in this. So when there are rumblings in their life, we're like, what? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have problems. They have, addictions also,
Yeah.
So I think lesson learned from this, like, yes, they are human and they're just like you and I, and they're not worth idolizing.
Right. I think when it comes to celebrities, if we're not careful and healthy, we either idolize or dehumanize.
Yeah. Or both.
Or both.
Or both.
At the same time.
Because, like, I can't remember when it was, but a few weeks ago we talked about the whole thought of treating every single, when Jesus says what you do to the least of these, we always think of the poor,
Right.
but really the context and the original language implies anybody that you would treat as less than human.
Yeah.
So you might dehumanize a celebrity that you dislike as much as you may dehumanize a homeless person on the side of the road that you just walk by like they're a piece of traffic.
Right.
So And I just think, to me, I'm going to keep ringing the bell on this, not in a I've arrived, but I want to keep ringing the bell of this in my own soul. But to anybody listening, that at least those of us that would claim to follow Jesus, that either every single human being is somebody created by God in his image that Jesus desperately loves and died for, or they're not.
Yeah.
So if we're willing to start making memes about someone, I don't care if it's a politician that is on the side that you don't like, or if it is a celebrity that you think has hurt your other celebrity. I don't care who they are. Let's not pretend to love the world and want to save the world and then make the world targets of our scorn and our mockery and our ridicule at the same time.
Yeah.
So we either need to decide that every human being is imago Dei, made in the image of God, or not. And the world, I think, gets really confused when we claim that we follow a God that is love.
Yeah.
And that came for the broken, and the tax collector and the Pharisee and the religious person alike, and said, I've come to give them hope. And to me, I just think let's continue to not dehumanize or idolize
Right.
people just because they are famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think that's what initially got me. I wouldn't even say I'm invested in the trial. It's just
Right.
something that has been so mind-boggling to me that I can't believe that it's real life. Like it's just been, I think one example that I can think of is in the court trial, they've had the lawyers read out a text and say, for example, like, Johnny, is this correct? Did I read this correctly? And there was one that was very descriptive and very just like volatile. And Johnny said, no, can you say that again? And then he said it again, clear as day. And he was like, could you just say it one more time? Because he thought it was funny, like what he said. And it was like a joke that was very belittling to Amber.
Her team.
And the entire courtroom like chuckled. And it's like, oh my gosh, Johnny, you're so charming and funny. But then if Amber Heard were to do that, I think the narrative would be completely flipped. And I think it's because of that basis of idolizing and dehumanizing that we're so quick to apply context where we see fit and what fits our picture. And that is what really caught my attention.
Yeah.
Was not necessarily, well, Amber's right and Johnny's wrong, but like, this is wrong.
Right.
Like, what we've done with this is
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really good. I'm glad you brought up the note of dehumanizing, because I think we do that with anybody we disagree with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they're automatically not a human anymore.
Yeah.
They're just an enemy. And what I think we've seen on both sides in this trial is we have all made them caricatures
Yeah.
of the people we knew.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't it cool to see Jack Sparrow in court? Isn't that crazy?
Right.
Like, no. Johnny Depp's a real person.
Right.
He has
Yeah.
real feelings,
Yeah.
real emotions. Amber
Sparrow
Heard,
is
same
not.
way. Now,
Right.
what's tricky is in the same way you said it doesn't have to be incorrect for it to be slander. It can be the truth and still be slander. And so when we think or we post or we'll have conversations at the water cooler or think thoughts that are degrading of Amber or Johnny, even if they're correct, again, if you're listening as a Christ follower, there should be something inside us at least that should trigger, man, how hurting are they right now?
Yeah.
Or how hurting
Yeah.
were they when they did that?
Yeah.
When this
Right.
text was sent, when this was said, when this was done, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we can't get to a place of, man, how broken must they be? They have it all and they're still struggling
Yeah.
with the same crap all of us struggle with.
Yeah.
Right.
They have it all and yet have absolutely nothing
Yeah.
still. And so as Jesus followers, we should be the people that stand in the middle of the fence and say, I'm so sorry both of them are hurting.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry their lives have been
Absolutely.
made a mockery right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Above all else. And like you said, again, if we're going to have Christian in our bio on Facebook and share memes that defame people, do the rest of us a favor and take Christian out of your bio.
Yeah.
Because
Come
you're
on.
making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah.
Come on.
For sure.
And let alone the rest of us look bad, you're making Jesus look bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but that's not the Jesus I read about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you're reading this or listening to this from a non-faith context, I apologize for all the Christians
Yeah.
that are
Yeah,
acting no
for
different
sure.
than the rest of the world
Right.
when they claim to be different.
That's good.
But I also think this has shown us the danger of being on teams. We've seen this in culture 1,000 times over in the last few years.
Yeah.
But to say, this is my team, this is who I align with,
Yeah.
and whatever they say, whatever they do, I'm going along with.
Yeah.
So to automatically pigeonhole yourself into all chicks are just crazy and just all women are wrong and don't believe anything they say, that's foolish.
Yeah.
But to automatically say, I believe all women, anybody that says they're a victim of abuse is also foolish, because we've seen that is also not the case always either. But to say, Larry, I'm on the team of people, and I'm not going to allow my identity or who I am to be pigeonholed down into something so small as to a team.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. I like that.
Tribalism has never been stronger than these last 2 years. I FaceTime with my cousin. If anybody saw the podcast from last year that he was on, he's getting his PhD in polarization and politics and all these things. And we're talking about this book called The Coddling of the American Mind and tribalism. And I told him the other night, I was like, we got to get you back on and talk about some of the things going on, because it's so easy. It's just, I just think you put it perfectly. It's so easy to think I need to be on this side, and I want to be on the side of Jesus and people. I like what you said. I want to be on the side of people. But one thing you mentioned, it reminded me of actually my favorite part of the trial, because like you did, I didn't watch it live, but I watched a few YouTube clips to kind of try to get ready for it. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Over the last couple of weeks, there's a couple times I would be on a rabbit hole, rabbit trail, and I would find a couple, so I won't act perfect, but. And there's nothing wrong with watching. I don't know. Anyways, but you're talking about the brokenness, and besides the fact that him saying this obviously was kind of defamatory towards Amber, but do you remember the part where Johnny talked about one of the reasons that he was with her, and he talked about the dysfunctional relationship he had with his mother?
Yeah.
And
podcast for another day.
Yes. But like just his honesty and self-awareness to talk about wounds of the past and how he's brought them into the future.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other podcast, but I just think there's been so many times recently where I've seen people in culture that would not claim to follow Jesus be more self-aware about the journey and the impact of their journey than a lot of Christ followers. For him to look at, I mean, it sounds cliche, but this fruit, where's the root? And to actually go travel back in time to say, where did that wound come from? And how am I still living out that wound? How am I still living out that false story? How am I still letting the past come into the future? But one verse I want to share, speaking of tribalism and having to be on teams, there's a verse I read a long time ago that has always stuck with me. And I never knew this was in the Bible, but a few years ago I read this. Proverbs 18:17 says this. The first to state his case seems right until his opponent begins to cross-examine him. Another translation says this: the person who tells one side of a story seems right until someone else comes and asks questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's so simple and obvious, but how easy is it for us, whether it's in a court case or in someone that comes and vents to us? Or in any situation in life, doesn't it always seem right until you know the whole story?
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't it always? My old boss, when I was in when I worked in retail, she'd always tell me, "There's three sides to a story. There's that person's side. There's that person's side.
Exactly what.
And then there's the truth in between."
Yep, that's exactly what came to my mind.
And but not to go back to older topics, but this too reminds me of the human need of how to navigate relationships and friendships. But it also reminded me of, speaking of tribalism, again, the powerful danger of echo chambers.
Yes.
Because if I'm only watching CNN, let's just pick on CNN, I am going to be 100% convinced to this side of the story.
Yeah.
And that anything, or if I'm only watching Fox, if I'm only consuming liberal media or conservative media, the more I pigeonhole, the more I'm going to not only just become convinced of this side, but I'm going to more and more demonize and dehumanize and just be disgusted by the other side.
Yeah.
And so in a day and age where there's a lot of competing voices, let's do our intellect and our souls and our society a favor and make we shouldn't be consuming news all day, but when we do consume news, let's be holistic.
Yeah.
and our consumption.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's have as much of a balanced. I mean, there's no news station that's not tainted by bias and
Right.
human corruption. But let's be holistic, and let's be balanced in our consumption, so that we don't find ourselves pigeonholed and making a lot of assumptions all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's good.
That's good.
That's good. This has been
Real
fun.
easy to say, and then when you put it, when you're like on someone's Facebook post, you're like,
Right.
oh.
Like,
I feel like with culture today that even when I feel the desire to like explain or just play devil's advocate or say like, hey, maybe there's a middle ground here, that I back away from it and I shy away from that because of the trail that would follow.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it's hard to find like practical ways to be that light to more than just people that you interact face to face with. Because I mean, in our world today, technology holds this much power, and then face to face interactions have lost a lot of their steam that they used to hold before technology. And so it's hard to find those routes via technology to spread, because my reel that I make about Jesus being the light of the world and the need for society to see two sides to every situation and the truth in between is going to get maybe like 5 shares.
Right.
But if I post about how Amber Heard was snorting cocaine through a tissue,
Oh.
I'm famous.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's
Nuance
very-
doesn't sell. Extreme
Right.
sell.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to. That's one thing I'm navigating in my generation of like all technology is just how can I be a light on that platform and still have an impact in the way that I would want to.
But you know what I think it is? You know, the image that comes to mind when I think about light is you can be a shooting star that's bright and gets a lot of attention and dies out, or you can be the slow burning bonfire that eventually gives warmth and light when people need it.
That's good. I like
And
that.
in a dark world, your spirit that
Yeah.
continually shines, when people are tired of all the noise and all the fuss and all the division and all the hatred and all the vitriol, they're going to be attracted to your quiet, gentle, joyful spirit.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, okay, there's something in you
Yeah.
that I want to hear more what you have to
Yeah,
say.
Right.
I mean, when I seek advice from someone, one thing that I'm guilty of doing is I'll like kind of, I think everyone should vet the people who are pouring into their lives, but
Yeah.
I can see a lot just from like what opinions people post about.
Oh yeah.
So if I'm going to be way less likely to put someone's advice into effect in my life if they're posting all their radical views on every,
Yep.
or if they're like on a podcast about Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp.
Thanks. Yeah.
Oh, keep talking. There's another verse I saw recently that shocked me that was in the Bible.
I just think that it's like it's not only what you're consuming and the balance in that, but also what you're putting out there
Right.
for everyone to see. Slander is one thing, but it's also with as often as our opinions change with this trial,
Yeah.
new evidence,
Right.
new clips,
Witnesses.
new witnesses. I think just being mindful of pressing post or pressing send
Right.
is important now more than
Yeah.
ever.
I love this. Ecclesiastes 7:18. It is good to grasp the one and not let go of the other. Whoever fears God will avoid all extremes.
That's good.
And that's so good.
That's so good.
That's good.
I never knew that was in there. It was like a few months ago I read that and I was like, that is so, again, so
good.
simple
Yeah.
And so relevant.
and so relevant to this day and age. If I'm going to fear God and be centered, I'm going to avoid extremes.
Well, I think you have a less of a desire to go towards one extreme or the other, because I found a lot of comfort and security in the truth that I know through Christ, and so I'm not like
Yeah.
looking, you know what I mean? Not like looking.
You don't need to
towards-
identify yourself
Right.
as Team Johnny or Team Amber.
Right.
And the more that you get in God's presence and his peace and love gets in you, and like you said, you get centered, and the more that you can't be more and more full of God's love without simultaneously being more and more full of God's love for people.
Yeah.
You just can't. And so for me, I can tell when I've really been in God's presence, when I'm really centered, because I'm slower to speak.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
slower to speak.
Yeah.
And I am definitely slower to critique.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely slower to slander
Yeah.
and speak ill about other people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think sometimes culturally, because we're Christ followers, and we maybe feel that pressure too. I need to inject light into this situation.
Right.
But I also think there's wisdom in you don't need to comment on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's the saying, a wise man once said nothing.
I like that.
Those are words that I live my life by. The world doesn't need to know what I think about everything.
Yeah.
Because the more I can throw my 2 cents on everything, the more I cheapen my own voice.
That's
the
good.
things that I
That's
choose
good.
to speak up
Yeah.
on, it means less if I talk about
good.
everything.
And I think sometimes we think we're injecting light when really we're just painting the dark with different shades.
Exactly. We're just throwing our opinion out there.
Like when I spoke of the OCU thing, the whole thing was glow. And so I started the whole thing I tried to start with, just probably to make Christians uncomfortable, as I talked about when the second verse in Scripture, God had to deal with darkness. And so I got them ready, and I said, you know what it says? It says, into the darkness, God said, and of course they scream, let there be light. And then I finished it in my own way. And God said, how dare you be so dark? And let me describe every way you're dark. And the point I was trying to make is when you look at the Daniels in Scripture, what the world needs is not more darkness describers, but light carriers. And it doesn't take courage to curse the dark and talk about how dark the world is. But it does take courage to be light. And so like you said, sometimes in controversial situations, being light is not saying anything.
Yeah.
Or other times it is being a voice of, what does Paul say? Let your speech be seasoned with grace
Right.
so that it may help those that hear.
Right.
Like even when I'm confronting evil, I can do it in a way that doesn't diminish and attack other human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can do it in a way that's full of grace and not full of mockery.
Right.
And so let's just, I don't know, in my life, I want to get more and more gracious. I want to become more and more light.
Yeah.
I want to become more and more joy. I want to become more and more love, more and more wisdom.
Yeah. For sure.
That's good.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having this conversation with me.
Thanks for having
And
us.
as always, if you have any thoughts, questions, if you want to see these two debate more about team, I'm just kidding. Send us any thoughts, questions you have at podcast@thex.church. That's podcast@thex.church. If you have not hit subscribe, our analytics show that 37% of you that watch this have, I just made up that.
I was about to say
Very
Yeah,
specific.
I just made something up. But if you've not subscribed, even if you watch it but you haven't subscribe and share this with somebody that you think may would enjoy it or be helped by it and help think maybe in a different way, challenge them. Like and rate and review means more to us than you'll ever know. Help us get the word out if you're enjoying these conversations. Until next time, we will see you next week.
Bye. See you then.